Okay, yeah, start the recordings of Fernando whenever you feel like you can begin with the presentation.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Eduardo will be basically presenting some of our challenges when migrating from Zoo V2 to Zoo V3. The idea here is to basically try to bring why we decided to use Software Factory, what are the advantages of it, and also some of the biggest challenges and some like caveats that we found during our journey. We kind of at least for the upstream patches for the upstream jobs we are very close to the go live. We should have it in like a two weeks tops. So community would start seeing our jobs reporting using like Zoo V3 and in a few weeks. And now we are in an effort to migrate our internal jobs as well. So yeah, there is still some work to do, but we were able to do a good progress during this release. So yeah, the main focus is to also assist other vendors. So I think that we don't have everything here, but from your feedback, we can bring for example for the mid cycle, we can bring more presentations with additional content, something that you guys think that could be included. And the idea is to bring something related to CI to vendors, third party CIs every meeting we have like mid cycles, PTGs, and so on. So yeah, Eduardo will lead this presentation. So go ahead, Eduardo.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so Fernando already gave the introduction. I'm Eduardo. I'm part of the NetApp team. We develop and maintain the NetApp drivers for ONTAP and SolidFire storage controllers for both Cinder and the Manila OpenStack projects. This is the agenda. I'm not gonna dive too deep into the topics because I'm gonna cover them in further detail the next slides. This is what we are not going to talk about specifically today because we understand that the community already has a very good grasp of all these concepts. But if someone here is new, a new contributor, or doesn't quite understand how all the OpenDev CI/CD infrastructure works yet, feel free to ask away at any time in the presentation or at the end where we will have a questions section as well, or via IRC or email. All the links and addresses that are in this presentation, I'm gonna make them available in the chat afterwards. So yeah, just a quick intro for people who might not know us and what NetApp is, or if you are watching this presentation, a recording of this presentation. NetApp is an enterprise who sells storage controllers. This is a very simplification of what NetApp does, but yeah, the flagship product of NetApp is the ONTAP and also SolidFire. They are a storage controller for like arrays of disks and such things. And we provide drivers, backends for the Cinder and Manila projects for OpenStack, which respectively deals with block storage and shared file systems. Yeah, so we have one of the requirements for an OpenStack third-party vendor is to have a functioning CI system, reporting status of jobs, success and failures to the upstream, to the OpenDev community. And I believe you cannot go on 1 or 3 months. I'm not sure of the time period right now, but your CI system cannot go not reporting success and failures for a certain period of time. If it does not report, your driver will be considered unmaintained. I believe this is the case for most OpenStack projects, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, so CI, having a functioning CI is a very big deal if you are an OpenStack third-party vendor. And we've used to use the Zoo V2 CI system, Zoo, which is a CI system which was developed specifically for, initially at least, specifically for the OpenStack project. because it has some features that suits very well the OpenStack project, which was the concept of project gating and also cross repo dependencies, which is when you add a depends on a directive in your commit messages in Garrett. When you have changes on one project that depends on another, and that's a feature of Zoo and other features as well that aren't going to be discussed right now. But yeah, so we used Zoo v2, but it's way past deprecated and end of life now. I don't recall exactly what the year was of the switch, the migration from Zoo v3. But yeah, our migration to Zoo v3 is being long overdue. So yeah, something that we've been very eager to migrate already. And yeah, that's what we've been doing the past months. And we've had a lot of successes and a lot of challenges as well. And just to point out some of the problems that we have with Zoo v2, we're having until now with Zoo v2 is that we heavily depend on DevStack Gate, which is now deprecated as well. The project is no longer maintained. And yeah, we use it to clone all the repositories of projects, of OpenStack projects. And recently, I think like 2 weeks ago, we had a problem, a blocker on our CI that Andrea fixed, which the DevStack Gate just stopped cloning repositories. That was a big problem. And it's a little, not so little issues like that, they keep popping up every now and then. So yeah, which affects also our job success rate that it was at an all-time low some months ago. That's a big problem. And we also maintain forks from the Nodepool and Zoo projects that date back to 2014. That can't be good, and we don't receive new updates. The version of the software is very, very, very old, and it's full of hacks. It's full of workarounds because problems they keep popping up, and we need to fix them quickly. And this is just getting worse because we know we're going to migrate to Zoo v3, so we just don't want to invest that much time in Zoo v2 anymore because we know we were going to deprecate that system and stop using it. So yeah, it's just a snowball that keeps rolling and rolling. And yeah, so that's our motivation to migrate to Zoo v3. Some of the main difference between Zoo v2 and Zoo v3, there are a lot of differences actually, but the main one that really changes things is the use of Ansible. Zoo v2 used to use the Jenkins Job Builder project to build Jenkins jobs from JSON and YAML files, and they are very similar. Both Jenkins Job Builder and Ansible are the kind of the backend, the engine behind Zoo. It's what Zoo uses to actually run jobs, to execute things, to do actions, and yeah, it's a switch. They are quite kind of equivalent. But I personally think that Ansible is way more elegant in the way that it does things, being agentless and all. So yeah, and the best part of it is that it's maintained. So we will receive all the updates, and we'll be able to upgrade and keep ourselves updated, and hopefully don't have to do that much of workarounds and fixing things that keep breaking. So we decided to go with SoftwareFactory. That's the name, kind of the topic of the presentation. But as far as I'm concerned, you have, if you are an OpenStack vendor, you have 3 choices to go about on deploying a Zoo system. You can, your first option would be to just use a native Zoo install, Nodepool and Zoo install, where you would install them from PyPy. You would issue a pip install Nodepool, pip install Zoo on a bare metal or virtual machine server. That's an option. I think it's the most bare bones option. You also can use prepackaged container images. They are made available by the Zoo team in Docker Hub. And I believe this is the vision going forward for the OpenDev project. I see a lot of images being containerized, and yeah, a lot of projects use this kind of architecture, and it's also a very good option to just use the Docker container images. And we have SoftwareFactory. That's what we went with. Because of a bunch of benefits that we really think are good to us, to our project. The main one I would say is the ease of deployment and upgrade, where you can deploy a SoftwareFactory instance with literally just 3 commands. It's that easy. And upgrading between versions is also very, very trivial. We hadn't had an upgrade yet. We started the project with SoftwareFactory version 3.6, and it is still the latest supported version. Yeah, so also one very, very selling point of SoftwareFactory is that all your configuration, it has a lot of services. It's not only Zoo. You can also have an Etherpad service and Hound service, which is the code search service. It can deploy Garrett as well. I think it can deploy Grafana as well. A lot of other very useful services for a CI system. And they are all integrated. You have integrated single sign-on. You can use GitHub, you can use Google, you can use whatever you want to authenticate your users for all these services that are all integrated. And the best part, one of the best parts, in my opinion, is that you have infrastructure as code. I believe the acronym on there is wrong. It has one extra A, but yeah, it's infrastructure as code where you have you have an infrastructure and a bunch of configuration files for all the services in your CI system, and you track them in a Git repository. This is not something that is deployed natively. But if you use SoftwareFactory, this is not
Oh, sorry, Eduardo, your voice is breaking, I guess. Is it just for me or everyone else?
No, same here.
Okay, so can you guys hear me now? Hello?
Yeah.
Test?
Yeah.
Yep, that's better again.
Oh, okay. So yeah. So what I was saying is that you can track all your configuration files for all your services in your CI system using SoftwareFactory, and that's very nice. It's like having a code base of just like a software project but for configuration files, and you can see how the system developed and how problems were fixed and things like that. So yeah, so it's a good benefit in our point of view. And yeah, so the first step in the migration process was deciding how exactly to archetype and how we're gonna do this exactly and how we're gonna start. And our philosophy has been since the beginning to reuse most everything that we can reuse. We're gonna reuse, and that's when we decided to build upon all the job structure and all the work that has already been done by OpenDev in their Zoo installation. And because what they're doing is it's literally the same thing that we want to do, which is have a test node, prepare it, installing creating some users, installing SSH key pairs for authentication, and then deploying DevStack with a custom localconf configuration file, and afterwards deploying DevStack and running Tempest tests. That's exactly what they do upstream. So it's the same thing that we wanted to do in our CI. The only difference would be that our localconf files would be different, where they would, for example, have a Manila job running on the LVM backend. We would have the same Manila job but running on ONTAP backends. Here are some in the slides. I give some Manila examples just because I'm more familiar with the Manila project, but it's kind of interchangeable. The job structure is the same. We are just the only part we are really modifying is just kind of the point of the spear. But as you will see, there are a lot of challenges in doing this and a lot of things that we have to work on. And yeah, the list of things that we did was just the first point. The first thing was to use the same images as OpenDev. This is a very important part of the task. We also want to use the same base job, the same job genealogy, which is the same job structure, the same jobs, the same Ansible roles, and just build upon that with our custom localconf files. So the first step was to use the same images, and with that you would use the node pool builder and the disk image builder services, which they basically exist because there are a lot of package conflicts when you use the official cloud images from Ubuntu, for example, because package versions are always changing, and you have a lot of conflict with Python packages. And then the OpenDev infra team just decided to create a tool, which is a disk image builder, to instead of relying on the official cloud images, just build their own custom images based on a very minimal file system image, where you can control all the packages that are installed and configure all the services in a way that you reduce the times where things will break because of a package version change or something like that. And it uses the concept of elements. And elements is just a bundle of shell scripts that modifies an image in a way. Everything you can do in a shell script, you can use on an element. And the disk image builder tool will change root into that image and run all the scripts there. And so some of the issues we had was that, for us at least, running SoftwareFactory, this didn't work out of the box because we are on CentOS running SoftwareFactory, and some of the elements that we need to build, for example, the Ubuntu Minimal element, which builds an Ubuntu image, it needs the debootstrap package. Because it will unpack a root file system image, and in order to modify it, and CentOS doesn't come with that package, and it doesn't come with a lot of other packages that you'll need. You need to figure out like what packages you need to install, and like inspecting the log files to see. So yeah, that's the first problem that we had. And also a very interesting one is the zoo user problem, which is OpenDev. They have an element called a zoo worker, which is a shell script that creates a user called zoo and installs SSH key pairs for this user. SoftwareFactory, they also have an equivalent element, which is the zoo worker user element, and it does exactly the same thing, but for a user called zoo worker and not zoo. And this is a problem because if you configure your node pool to log into the images, the default username for logging into the images is different for Zoo if you have a native Zoo installation and if you have a SoftwareFactory installation. So OpenDev logins using the Zoo username, and SoftwareFactory uses the Zoo worker username. So if you are using OpenDev elements in your images while using SoftwareFactory, you have to take that into account, because if you use the wrong combination of elements and default usernames, you won't be able to, Zoo won't be able to SSH into the test node to run the tests. And yeah, if you want to avoid all that hassle, I would just recommend using the Docker images from Docker Hub, because they are prepackaged and all the packages are needed by the elements are already installed and everything is taken care of for you. So if you just want something that works, that's what I would recommend. The next step would be to replicate all that job structure from base to multi-node, going all the way to installing DevStack, and in the end, modifying the local conf file to have the ONTAP backends in it. So some of the challenges we had was that some of the tasks in the Ansible playbooks for these jobs, they are very OpenDev centric, OpenDev specific, and that's the way they should be. This is something that vendors should keep in mind, is that this is a thing with this like kind of approach that we have. It's a problem with our approach, the challenge that we have to overcome, and not something that OpenDev did wrong, because these playbooks are OpenDev specific. That's is their purpose. So some of the roles they use, which is the configure inbound and mirror info. Configure inbound is a role for configuring a DNS service. We on NetApp, we don't need that role. The mirror info role, it does some things related to the mirrors that OpenDev has. They maintain mirrors for package managers like apt, DNF, and they also have a PyPy mirror where they keep Python packages just to speed up CI execution time. And yeah, we just use regular mirrors. We don't use the same mirrors as them, so we don't need that kind of tasks. Another problem that we really have a hard time with is some of the paths in the elements, disk image builder elements in the playbooks and roles, they are hard coded. For example, for the directory where all the projects are cloned during image building, it's hard coded. Part of the absolute path is hard coded with the string opendev.org, and this works for the OpenDev CI. But if you are using a Zoo connection, Garrett connection, that it's not the opendev.org website, doesn't have the opendev.org host name, which will be the case most of the times. If you have a private Garrett repository, for example, which is our case, you have problems, because when DevStack runs, it will try to find these Git repositories, and it will search, and part of the path will have the host name of your private Garrett repository. And if you are building images using the same elements as OpenDev, I believe the specific element that has this problem is but that has this string hard-coded is the OpenStack repos element. You have problems. DevStack will complain saying that it couldn't find any repository, and it will just fail. Yeah, so that's one issue that we have. And also mirrors. Sometimes it happens that something can break for someone installing DevStack on their virtual machine, but not for the OpenDev CI, because their PyPy mirror have like not the latest versions of Python packages sometimes. And this happened like a couple months ago, where our CI broke and the DevStack installation broke for other people in the community, but it didn't affect the OpenDev CI, because they were using like slightly lower versions of Python packages. So yeah, every job has a pre and a post playbook where you can execute things before the test run itself and after it ran. And in our case, for our specific NetApp jobs, what we do in our pre-playbooks are we install some dependencies and we run a nested Ansible, a nested playbook inside the job that is running to request to an API that we have for ONTAP resources. So we need some ONTAP clusters to run our jobs, to use as our backends. And this API returns to us some information about those backends, and then we do some tests with those informations. Let's say we need to create, for Cinder, for example, let's say we need to create iSCSI connections, targets, and initiators, iSCSI, for that job to run. We do that in the pre-playbook. And in the post-playbook, we just tear down all the resources that we used, so that after all those resources are created, they just don't keep piling up as hundreds of jobs are ran. We tear them down after the job is completed. And the necessity for this is an interesting topic, which is the nested playbook. So Zoo can't handle Ansible Galaxy collections. And that was an issue for us, because the only collection you can use in Zoo is the Ansible built-in, which is like the standard library of Ansible. It has a lot of important and great modules that you can do a lot of with, but it doesn't have everything. That's for what you have Ansible Galaxy, where even third-party people can contribute with their own collections, roles, and modules. And NetApp, they maintain their own collections for NetApp-related products. One of them is the NetApp OnTap collection, which is very useful in our case, because that's what we're doing. We're running playbooks and roles that are going to interact with OnTap clusters. And if we're going to do this without this collection, we will have to like reinvent the wheel and rewrite all the work that these guys had ourselves in our own playbooks, and that would be a lot more work. So we wanted to reuse this Ansible Galaxy collection in our playbooks, but we couldn't, because this is not yet supported on Zoo. So you can only use roles that are defined in your own repositories that Zoo watches. And yeah, it's just not possible. So we asked around in the Zoo IRC channel, and the response we got is that it's really not possible. And the only way would be to use nested Ansible, which is what we are doing. And yeah, it's working well for us. This is something to keep in mind if you are a vendor and you also have let's say collections on Ansible Galaxy for your storage controller. You can reuse it using nested Ansible. And yeah, that's some relevant links of documentation and all the jobs, playbooks, roles, where to find them if you want to inspect them and study them to see what they're doing, and if you can reuse it, if that's also applies to your use case. And yeah, I believe that's it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask away. And I believe that's it.
Very impressive.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks to the NetApp team for preparing this. It was very elaborate. And I had just one question, like, is the NetApp CI currently using Zul v3 based out of SoftwareFactory?
Yeah, so to report job results, we are still using our Zoo v2 infrastructure. We are in the process we are actually in the kind of the final steps to do a go live of the Zoo v3 system and replace it. So yeah, we have it reporting downstream for us internally, because we are still running some tests to validate if everything's okay. But yeah, I would say some months we will have the Zoo v3 array reporting upstream for the community to see.
Okay,
Hi.
that sounds very good.
Yeah, I have an additional question. You mentioned when describing the post steps, you mentioned that you clean up the resources so that you don't have leftovers. So my question is, besides when something fails, let's say a patch is broken and does something that it shouldn't do, so it leaves the resource behind, do you find many cases where volumes are left behind because they are not properly cleaned up by Tempest itself? Because I know I've experienced it running Tempest locally. A couple of volumes are always left behind, and I've heard other vendors complain about this.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah, that's an issue. The way we do it today is sometimes Tempest fails, and it won't just delete the resources because it thinks that the resources are still in use for like other tests that failed, and that makes the current tests also fail. So what we do is we have two. For example, I'm gonna give an example in Manila. I think it's in Cinder. It works kind of in a similar way, but we have the concept of SVM, which is a storage virtual machine, which is in Manila would represent a shared server. And it's like a container, a logical container for like untapped things inside it. For example, a volume, a lum, or something like that, an array of disks. And after a job is complete, what we do in the post playbook is either delete that SVM, which is a logical container, which has all the volumes, everything that we created.
Eduardo, I think we can simplify the answer for Gorka. We are maintaining an external API that handle with our devices. So when the teardown of a specific devices fail, we will mark that device as an error state. So it will not be available to to run another test, since we will go there and fix that device, which means that delete by ourselves the device that is in error. But in a happy path, when the test is performing well and the NetApp collection delete all the resources will be deleted, so it will be back to available again. So this will be done for Manila and for Cinder. Of course, both projects have the specific configuration and the specific backends infrastructure, but basically that's it. In Cinder, in Cinder, we mostly does not have any problem to delete because for the Manila backends we have a lot of things to take a look before we delete the vServer, for example. So we need to see the snap mirrors and so on. So for Cinder, we does not need to look for it. So right now we are handling these fails in that way. But almost the time that we already migrate all the jobs that we have in V2 to V3, and it's working pretty well until now. We will see in the few weeks, I believe.
Thanks.
I think there was a topic also added by Simon, for which he's not available here, but he also said like after a successful or unsuccessful run of Tempest, we have some resources left. This was a helpful question.
That's why I was asking, because I've experienced it myself, and I remember somebody complaining. It was Simon. I had forgotten. But yeah, you run Tempest runs fine, and suddenly you go check your backend and you have a couple of volumes there. And it's kind of weird.
We should maybe restart the discussion, but because I remember the last time we discussed, the idea was to get a list of the names of the jobs, which, okay, maybe we need to ask again.
I can say that I also saw this kind of behavior, but when Tempest failed, because some kind of image was already existing, and then we had to do some kind of cleanup. Sometimes the volumes weren't visible when I did like a volume list, and they were only visible in the database. So there were times that we need to actually go to the database and delete something in it. I'm not, I don't remember it entirely now because it was a few months ago, but I also had this issue with volumes leftovers.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, it's because Tempest itself creates its own project. So the resources go into that project, and then it destroys the project. When you use your own user list volumes, they are not there unless you say, show me the whole cloud, the volumes for the whole cloud, if I remember correctly.
Correct. And if you want, I guess you are using already that, but there is, if you're using the run Tempest role from Tempest repository, which I think you are because you're reusing the existing jobs, then you can just pass one variable, and then I can find the name. And if you do that, Tempest will, at the beginning before the execution, the Tempest will execute snapshots of the current status of all resources. And after that, at the end of the execution, it will run a cleanup on the on the leftovers. So let me find the name of the variable. But it's documented in the run Tempest role. Yeah, it's called and yeah, there is the Tempest cleanup role, sorry, which is included by default, and you just need to enable it. Where should I put it? In the Etherpad or in the chat? Okay.
Yeah, I want to say thank you for the presentation. It was very, very nice. But as a maintainer of a third-party CI, I still feel that if I would like to imitate the same flow with the same stack, it won't be easy. Even after that, I already have a third-party CI working, and after seeing this lecture, I didn't completely understand. Maybe because I'm lacking resource of understanding the open dev, how they are working. But I don't know. I'm not so fast going to change my stack to use the SoftwareFactory. I didn't completely understand how to make things simpler.
Yeah, so it depends. Like, do you already use Zool or you're using another CI system?
I'm using Jenkins.
Oh, okay, yeah. So OpenStack used Jenkins in the past, I believe, as well. Yeah. So from Jenkins, I believe it will be a lot different. Is that we were already using Zool, but a very older version of Zool. So yeah, I won't say it's easy. It's been a lot of work for us doing this migration, because you have to study like how the OpenDev job structure, how it works. If you know Ansible, it will help you. Like you really need to know shell scripting and Ansible. And you need to like know where to find stuff. So in the presentation, I'll post the links below in the chat. In a while. I'll give some links to where to find these resources. Like where are the playbooks? Where are the Ansible roles? and you can take a look at them to see if they would make sense to you. I don't know. It
Okay,
really
thank you.
depends on how much work you want to put into it, but but OpenStack, they have a very nice, very coherent job structure system, uh, and it's easy to work with after you set everything up and you have a functioning like base system. It's really easy to work with, I would say.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I would like to add something as well. This first step to know this new environment of Zuvi 3, it's not so straightforward, but once time you learn it, you will be able to migrate all your jobs easily. Because we now migrate all of the NetApp CI jobs for Manila project and also the Cinder job that perhaps in the same CI infrastructure. So once time we understood what is this inerrancy about the jobs that the OpenDev does, it will be pretty easy to migrate and reflect all of our jobs to this new Zuvi 3 environment using SoftwareFactory. So we sometimes we need to do one step back to do two step later. So I think this is the case because it will be very easy to migrate all the different jobs that we have in the NetApp CI.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess this presentation will help all the vendors that are currently at Zul V2 and want to migrate it to Zul V3, and NetApp people, they are already working on implementing the same in their CI, so they can help you with same for your CI as well. A very good presentation and a very good discussion. So yeah, I think we are at the end of the PTG. We are already past time, so I will just stop recording.